Now we've already looked at a formula that can help us find the sum of an AP. In the last lesson we said that if you want to add up all of the terms, then if you know what nearly all of the terms are, all but the last one add up to, and then you add the last one on, you can find the sum of all of them. And that made a lot of logical sense, and we've used this in a variety of ways. We've also said that we can rearrange the formula to say the last term must be the sum of all the terms minus the sum of almost all the terms. And we've used that to solve some problems too. But what if you don't know the sum of almost all the terms, or you don't know what the last term is? This formula is not really all that helpful in that case. So we need something that's a little bit better. Now, this makes a lot of logical sense, and I'm going to explain it by using an example. Let's imagine we have a series where we've got all the numbers from 1 to 100 and we're adding them up, and we see them all in a long line like this, and we want a quick way to add them. Well, if you imagine them being like a line of 100 people standing in a single file in a row, the easiest way to do it is to grab the end of the line and say, how about you come along here and stand next to the person who's first in line, and you come along here and stand beside this one, and line them all up like this. So that then, instead of being 100 numbers in a row, you've got 50 numbers where everybody has a partner. So at the end of the row here, if there's 50 numbers, you'll have 50. And at the start of this row here, going back the other way, you'll have 51, won't you? All right, these are much easier to add up now. Why is that? Well, have a look at each couple, if you like. We can call them partners or pairs or couples. They all add up to the same thing. They all add up to 101. So we've got 101 plus 101. We've got 50 lots of 101, don't we? And that would be the quickest and easiest way for us to add these numbers up. So let's just think through what we did then. We thought through the number of pairs of numbers, and we multiplied that by the first number plus the last number. Now, why the first and the last? Couldn't you do the second number and the second last, the third number and the third last? Well, of course you could. But for a formula, let's just keep it nice and easy. And often we know the first number after all, and the last number is also kind of significant. It might also be one that we know. So we can simplify this up even more. The number of pairs, how did we come up with 50 pairs? Well, we had 100 terms, didn't we? So in other words, n was 100. So you take however many numbers you've got, you call that n, and you halve it. That's how many pairs you're going to have. And then, of course, you just multiply it by the first, which we've already been calling a, and add it to the last. So the only real new terminology here is that this is the last term. Now, we actually have another way of writing the last term. Isn't the last term the nth term? It is. So in other words, if we didn't know what the last term was, there's two things we could do. We could say, all right, I know n, I know a, hold on a minute, I don't know the last term, just a minute, I'll just figure it out. And we can use this formula that we've already seen for finding the last term. Then when we've got it, we can sub it back in here. Some people say, well, no, you've got your nice formula there for the sum of n terms. Why don't you just write another version of it that uses this? Okay, let's have a go. Let's rewrite this equation, n over 2 first plus, now instead of writing L for last, what if we wrote all of this for the last term? So we need to write a plus n minus 1 d, and we'll have all of that. Tidying it up, we've got a plus a is 2a, and we come up with this formula. So here we've got our two formulas then. Let's call this one Sn as well. Now, the first formula would be super easy to use if you have n and the first term, which is a, and the last term. But if you only have a and n and d, then this formula would be easy to use. Now, looking at both of them, you'll see that this one looks quite a lot like your nth term formula. So if you're memorising formulas and you've already learnt this one, to me it makes the most sense just to learn this one, because if you know this one, and this one makes a lot of sense, you've just looked at a story that you can remember, which explains how to build it. So if you forget, you can kind of rewrite it from scratch just by using, a bit of nous to come up with this on your own. To me, it makes sense to use this one. And if you don't have the last term, just use this one to figure it out. But lots of people really like this, just being able to throw A and N and D straight in and have the sum between terms just drop out. So you've got two formulas there. Now, one thing you might be wondering, do you get the right answer if you don't have an even number of terms? Because up here we had 100 terms, so it came out really nicely that there was 50 pairs. So let's just double check that it actually works, even when there's an odd number of terms. Let's do an example. Let's say we've got 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms there, which is an odd number. Well, what would happen if we brought the 7 around here? It would be next to the 3. The 6 would come around here and be next to the 4. And we'd end up with the 5 not having a partner. How many pairs have we got? Well, we've got 2 full pairs plus half a pair. So we've got 2.5 pairs. And what does each pair add up to? 10, 10. See how the half pair actually adds up to 5, which is half of 10. So this is actually going to work out just fine. We've got 2.5 lots of 10. So they add up to 25. Now you can easily add these numbers together and see that they do make 25. So now we're going to tackle a question 2 different ways. You can look at the working and take your pick of which one's your favourite way to do it. In the arithmetic series 100 plus 94 plus 88 plus 82 plus some other numbers, find the sum of the first 40 terms. Now I'm going to start by using this formula where I'm going to need the first and the last term. Now the problem straight away is that I know that n needs to be 40. I know that the first term is 100, but I don't know what the last is. So to find that last term, the 40th term, I'm going to actually go ahead and find that first. Now the formula that I'm using for that, of course, is Tn equals A plus n minus 1d. So that's on your formula sheet, and it should be something that you already are familiar with. So the 40th term, if I'm letting n be 40, I need A, which is 100, plus 40 minus 1 is 39, so I need 39 lots of D. Now we haven't identified yet what D is. What's the difference here? Well, it looks like we're adding minus 6, so I could slot that in here. So we need 39 times minus 6. So you can go ahead there and work that out. I've got 39 sixes is 54, and I've got 100 minus 234, and that gives me minus 134. Now I can go ahead and use this formula and say the sum of the first 40 terms, it must be 40 on 2 times the first term plus the last term. And so plus the last term tells me I need to take away 134. So in other words, I've got 20 times, what's that, minus 34. So I have minus 680. Now the other way to work it out would be to use the second formula. I'll do that here. I've still got these same ingredients. I'm not going to need L. I just need N, A, and D. So if I've got those written down, I'm ready to go. Now the sum to n terms, you'll need to remember what this formula is. It's slightly different. You'll notice it's quite similar to this one, but it looks a little bit different at the beginning, and then it has the same ending. Okay, now I can find the sum of the first 40 terms. It needs to be 40 over 2. 2 lots of A is 200, plus n minus 1, that's 39 lots of D. So I've got 20 times, now here I already worked out 39 times minus 6 was minus 234. So in here I've got 200 minus 234. So I've got 20 times minus 34, exactly the same as that line, and I get minus 680. Now there's about the same amount of work to do in each one. This one's probably more straightforward in that you've just got one formula, and as long as you know it and you get it right and you've used the right one and you've got your A and your N and your D, this one's quite straightforward. But if you've forgotten it or this one doesn't make sense to you, finding that 40th term and throwing it into this formula is equally valid. So take your pick.